Welcome to the City Council, City of Nowthen Budget Workshop. Monday, September 25th, 2017, 7 o'clock. Had a chance to review the numbers since our last workshop. The total proposed increase, the impact on the levy. People had a chance to think about it. Take comments at this point and make decisions.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Bryan.
I just, and I know we can make adjustments after the fact, and I know that we probably will be making some adjustments based on some contracts possibly, and whatever else does come up, but I'd like to at least think that 8% is a little high to increase the levy, knowing that there's school referendums and other things going on. Seeing that we've had increases I understand we've had increases for the roads and the sheriff and the watershed, but I think there's probably some places that we can look at to get it at least a little more manageable for what we're spending, even under, I've gone down with just my numbers under about real close to 5, but I'd be even happy for now getting somewhere under 6. I've just looked at a couple places and have taken out, looked at where we can remove just over $31,850, which would be at just under 5.9%.
Well, we agreed that we wanted to put more into roads. The sheriff isn't up sharply, but it is up with wages and para. Our own costs go up slightly each year with para. What were the other ones you mentioned? I think the fire department obviously went up this year.
The fire department went up a little bit.
Oh, the watershed.
We've got the comp plan, we've got the election.
And the watershed, and then the Fire Protection Council for the communication contract.
Right.
So there's certain things that are going to drive it up. Did you want to address anything specifically? You said you had how much in?
30, just a light pass. We can either go through and all of it or just a light pass at 31,850.
And that got us to 5%?
That gets us to just under 6.
6%? So what types of things would we be talking about too? Because obviously, well, let me ask this, you can't say that you can't be addressing those things we just mentioned unless you're addressing the road plan, which we agreed we wanted to put more into. Is that part of your reduction?
No.
Okay, so the watershed, the sheriff, the fire, the roads are not part of that. And you've got other things that you would like to discuss?
I'd at least like to entertain the issue for discussion.
All right, so let's hold off on that. What does the rest of the council see after looking at the 8.22% from our last meeting?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Bettner.
I would rather leave it high for now, and we can see how things come in when we get to December, if there's a surplus, or if we change how we're gonna have our assessments done. We can look at things closer and lower things at that point. Once we set it tonight, we can't go up. You can only go down. So it's better to leave it a little high right now and look at it closer in December and have this discussion. We don't know what the price of fuel is gonna do. It's been going up. There's some people predict it's gonna go up over to $4 a gallon for diesel fuel. We don't know them uncertainties. Look at all the rain we've been having. Are we gonna have a real snowy winter? are them costs gonna go up? It's a very good possibility. It's better to stay a little high and wait till December, and then if you wanna have that debate and try to, I mean, no, I don't wanna raise taxes at all. I'd like to see a zero there, or even lower, but it's not reality. So, I mean, we need to do things with our roads and different things, but let's wait until December, and then we can have that discussion and say, yeah, we're gonna do this with assessments, or with our assessor, and different things, so we can lower this, we can lower that, but let's do that in December, not now.
Other comments?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Rainville.
I would prefer to go through what Councilmember Bryan has to offer. They may not even touch the things that Councilmember Bettinger is looking at or spoke to. I also have a couple things too. I don't know if there are any of what Councilmember Bryan has, but I think we should at least have a conversation on it. And if they are in areas that are volatile, maybe we hold back on anything. But if there are areas that history has told us, maybe we can look at a reduction without having any consequences to it. We should do that.
Councilmember Rickert.
You know, I feel the same way as everybody else. Obviously, I don't want my taxes going up. I don't want anybody's taxes going up. But it is the nature of the beast. And I honestly, looking back at things from last year, I think we did ourselves a disservice by not increasing more than we did. Because now, from where we were last year, we went up 0.7%. And now, because of that fact, we, in my opinion, we actually should have bumped our road improvement fund even more last year when we saw we were at such a low percentage. Because now, the biggest part of this, over $100,000 of this new budget is for road improvements, which we're still a shortfall compared to what our engineer says we should be at. And we've been at that shortfall for how many years? And everybody knows that's the biggest complaint that I hear around here is our roads. And what we're budgeting right now at that 8%, we're still behind what our engineer's been telling us for how many years? Several, since we had that first road study. And again, so looking back at it, I think we did ourselves a disservice going so light last year and trying to stay so light. And again, in my opinion, we should have been around, you know, just, you look everywhere else, we should have been around 3 to 5%. So then this year we wouldn't have been at 8%. We would have been more that 3 to 5%. And then it's not that big, oh gosh, why is it going up that much? We need to take a look because, again, like Councilman Bettinger said, it's a reality of what's happening. Things are increasing in costs. Wages are increasing, pay is increasing. So we can't sit here and think that, unfortunately, our levy's not going to have to increase, you know, from one year to the next. Obviously, I agree. We want to keep that to a minimum, but again, I think we did ourselves a disservice last year not increasing more than what we did. And it shows.
I'm hearing two different things, though. I don't think well, I'm not sure what Councilmember Rainville is looking at for controlling costs. But I think that per our previous workshop, we talked about we do need to do something with the roads. And while there may be some catch-up, because the last number of years when we've been together here as a team, we haven't chosen to put as much into that. There was an expectation last year of funds from the state, commensurate with what we had the year before, that because the state couldn't get their act together, we didn't get that as well last year. So that certainly played into some of what we thought was coming in, what our legislators told us was coming in and didn't come in. But I don't know that, certainly Councilmember Bryan said he didn't want to go and adjust that. I think that what I was hearing, at least from Councilmember Rainville, was taking a look at things that may be excessive. I don't think people mind spending money on critical things. Safety, transportation, some of the key things that we have here. I think where they're looking at is, if you need to raise in one area, just make sure you're controlling the cost in those other areas. That don't assume that everything else stays the same and you add cost to it, but that you control the costs that you can while increasing the things that are necessary. So if the fire needs to go up, if the public safety items are going up in ways we can't control. I mean, when you've got unionized contracts, when you've got para, when you've got other obligations that are sent downstream to us, those things are gonna go up, and I think most of our residents wanna continue to pay for that. But I think it is prudent to say, is there anything else that we can control that is discretionary, so that we can put more focus on those things that either we can't control or that we need to, as you say, play catch up on. So I think it seems worthwhile to at least have those discussions. Are those things we want to do now, or as Councilmember Bettinger says, pass this to the county and address it before December? The concern is, do we address it before December, or do we get distracted? At least to have the discussion, yeah, those are things that maybe seem excessive now, and people don't mind paying for things that are important to their health and safety. And certainly transportation, being able to get fire and police to their residences is gonna be an important part of that. But then, what else is there that could be trimmed or could be tightened up a little bit to allow for that without getting excessive? So I think there is a balance can be had. We do need to make sure we're investing in our infrastructure. Are we a little loose in some of the other areas?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Bettinger.
just one quick thing. You know, going based on last year's approved budget and this year's, if you take away the $100,000 that we're adding extra into Road and Bridge, the total increase would be just under $12,000. So out of that 8.2%, you can see where that's coming from. It's all what's going in the Road and Bridge. Otherwise, there's $12,000 increase over the entire budget. And obviously, based on Councilman Bryan's, there are things that we all know that are forced to go up. And I guarantee that's where that other 12,000 is coming from. But again, if we wouldn't take that extra $100,000 and put it in the Road and Bridge, we wouldn't be increasing the levy much at all.
Other comments?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Rainville.
Again, I think it's important to listen to what Councilmember Bryan has. Again, I have some things, none of what I have affects or are related to the roads, watershed, sheriff, fire, anything like that. And, excuse me, I think it's important that we hear them.
I apologize ahead of time if that fly comes near me and I squish it. I apologize to those listening online, but it's a nuisance. Anything else? Well, I guess I would like to see if what Councilmember Bryan and Councilmember Rainville see as things they'd like to see addressed, if either of those match up, that would certainly be a place to start and have a discussion, see if we want to do something about it tonight or certainly before December.
Well, Mr. Mayor, the areas that I have are basically within utilities, where I see history, and what I believe history is telling us, there are some reductions available in both the phone.
Okay, so do you want to give us something specific and tell us
Yes,
a page and?
okay. Under general government, page 3, general fund, just short of halfway down, the telephone. We previously, starting in 2014, we budgeted $13,600, along with 2015 and 2016 and 2017. We did do a reduction to $13,100. The highest year we had was 2014, and that was $10,511. We went down to 93, then we went down to 9,800. We're currently at 6,038 at 9.5 months. Even if I take the average per month, we would be coming in at about, we'd come in less than $8,000, where we've budgeted $13,100. Even if we dropped it just by $2,500, that would still give us a budget of $10,600, which is more than what we need. The fire department,
Okay, let's hang on, so, are you talking fire department telephone, or are you talking?
but for, what I was talking about was the office, general government
Okay.
office.
So, Councilmember Bryan, was that on your list?
Yeah, I had it at 11.
Okay,
And what did you have it at, Councilmember Rainville?
I went down by 2,500.
All right,
I'd like to ask Corey, what, in the comment section, she's got combined with R&B, so I'm assuming it's R&B computers?
No.
Road and Bridge.
Road and Bridge.
Okay.
so, Corey, when you put the 2017 approved, was that what was approved for the general, or was that combined also?
That's combined.
Okay, so those numbers show combined, okay. And, Councilmember Bryan, you had proposed what?
I brought it down to 11. I mean, if you took roughly, we're at almost 9 months, and we're at 6,000 if you just spitballed another half of that for the rest of the year. With a little extra wiggle.
What was your total?
I was at 10,600 at 2,500.
All right, and you were starting to say something about the fire department, is that
Well,
phones, or?
I also had looked at the fire departments, but theirs is, that would just be like a couple $100.
And then year-to-date, they're at 1743
43.
out of 2,500, so I don't know if that's worth messing with. All right, that's one item to consider. What else did you have?
The other one I have is, under general government, the electric utilities, which is still on page 3. Under general government.
Excuse me, before you go on there. So Corey, again, as the person who's paying these bills, and do you anticipate any surprises? You came in at 13 as a combined general fund and road and bridge. Do you,
Well, it's all gonna depend on the weather. And
for the
since-
telephone?
For the phone.
Oh, the telephone, yeah, I mean, that I don't anticipate because we switched it, and since it was switched earlier in the year to that high-speed internet, and we changed the way that the contract was, it actually lowered it down. So we haven't even seen a full year of it, though, so I couldn't tell you what.
Okay, so at this point, you don't see any major issues with that,
No, I don't think it's
all right?
unreasonable.
So, Councilmember Rainville, sorry I interrupted, but you said
That's fine.
something on the electric utilities?
Yes, and from 2014 down to 2017, we have budgeted $6,500. And we've had a 57, 52, 59, 91, we had a 62, 29 in 2016. I don't know what the $300 jump was there. And we're currently at 4566 at 9.5 months. And I would suggest going down, I know it's not much, but it's something. If we went down $200, we'd go down to 6,300, which would be still over what our largest bill was, which was 2016.
See, to me, these conversations be a lot better to be had in December when we see where we're at in December. And, I mean, to be squabbling over $200 and we don't even know what it's gonna be at the year's end, I just,
Well, let me ask, Councilmember Bryan, was this on your list? Okay.
To me, it was a wash, almost a wash.
I was gonna say, I think it's a wash, and I agree in this one, that let's see what if it gets cold early and I think that this one could be eaten up, because we're talking about $600, $644 a month for October, November, December, and we could chew that up in October, November, December, so I would say leave that alone, my opinion. What else did you have?
The other one I have is the gas bill. We have 14 and
Are
15.
you talking right below that? the-
Yes, yeah. 14 and 15, we budgeted $9,900. 16 and 17, we did drop it by $2,000 to $9,700. 16, our bill was $40.79, so far it's $38.99 at 9.5 months. Even if we dropped it $2,000, we'd still be above the highest bill that we had in 2014. If we dropped it $3,000, we'd still be above our second highest, which was 2015.
I didn't include that.
You did not? And again, when I see combined with R&B, Road and Bridge, it's,
I would, Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Bryan.
I'd say that's another one, if we're gonna look at it later in December, that'd be one to look at it. And we'd have. Not that I would say it can't go down a little bit, but
All right,
Yeah,
in
Mr.
my
Mayor.
opinion.
Councilmember Ricker?
Yeah, you know, we're at 4,000 to date right now. We're not in our winter months where we're gonna use more than any other month. So again, I agree that one would, you know,
Well, I
again, it
think
looks
we-
like we have room to adjust possibly, but I'd wanna wait till we see what our winter month usage actually is.
I was gonna say, I think part of last winter was fairly mild too, so.
Yeah.
It seems to be a consensus at this point to leave that to the November discussion or before the December meeting.
All right,
Any others?
not right now, no.
All right, well, then Councilmember Bryan.
Sure, on my list, again, general fund, page 3, under city attorney, civil attorney. I just took the average, multiplied by 12, and just made it 7,500 instead of 15. Added a little wiggle in there.
All right, anybody got any comment on that?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Ricker?
I guess, you know, yeah, the only thing there too is it could be such a crapshoot. We don't know what, you know, what may or may not happen. You know, and again, if something significant happens, we could chew that up relatively quick. You know, we've already dropped that considerably from previous years.
Actually, we increased it $5,000.
Yeah,
Two
split it up
split
between,
out.
we split up
Yeah,
between
split
the
out.
prosecuting and the
Oh,
civil.
gotcha, I see what they did, okay.
My question is, you take a look at, there's an awful lot of fees for prosecuting and there's not much, I don't wanna say we get revenue from prosecuting, but there seems to be an awful lot of prosecution going on and not much for results, but it might be, that'd be a place we can take a look and maybe we can do a better deal on a cost of prosecuting attorney.
2016 numbers you gotta throw out, because he didn't bill us for 2 quarters of that until 2017. So we're gonna be way over in this year. So if you look back at the other years, then we're short.
Yeah, we're 43 or maybe.
Which is why the prosecuting attorney is already up at 28,000, 27,600.
Yeah, so combined, we're,
Yeah, we'll probably hit
We're gonna be
over
short.
40 this year, with the last year's stuff on there.
Yeah, it does screw it up if you don't get billed for a few months and it rolls over into another year. All right, what else do you have, Mr. Councilman Bryan?
Looking at, on the same page, under office equipment, knowing that we have, a total of 5 computers. If you combined the general government for office equipment and computers along with the road and bridge office equipment and computers, that was a total of budgeted for next year for 9,500 when you added them up.
Are you saying adding the general fund and the road and bridge?
If you added the general fund and road and bridge, it would be a total of $9,500, yes.
Okay. And your
I
proposal?
was just thinking if we were replacing 5 computers total, I did, just to see what a replacement computer price would be when, talking to Steve over at RB's, and he was saying that a refurbished replacement computer would be about $500, and that would include Windows 10. And if we just needed to get Windows 10, but we didn't need that installed for at least 2 more years, that it would be, he wasn't exact on the government cost, but he thought it was like $100 a computer plus about $500 for installation. So I just actually dropped that line item on page 3 down 1,000, and then also dropped the road and bridge down to 1,000. I mean, I guess I don't know exactly the difference between if they still need to be split out or not.
So you're saying you dropped this from 7,000 back down to 6,000?
To 5,000.
To 5,000? And road and bridge you also dropped?
To 1,000, yes.
Mr. Mayor, I just have one comment on it.
Yep.
I'm talking about the Adobe program. I'm going to a Adobe Day class tomorrow all day and signing up with the league stuff, the different options of it. And for like the lowest grade Adobe program, it was $72 a month per license. So it averages about $1,680 a year for the Adobe, for me and Lori to have it on our computers. So that would be the fund that it would be essentially be coming out of.
And is that doing the licensing, or is that getting just to buying a single full-blown?
That's what I have to find out at the class, what all the different programs entail and how the licensing is all gonna work and all that.
Because there might be stuff, a part of that we don't need.
You're saying it's $74 for each license?
72, yeah.
72.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Rickard?
Question for Councilman Brent. You were saying your prices were based on refurbished computers, correct?
A new computer would be $850. Replacing the exact computer that they have right now would be, including labor, $500. With
Computer,
Windows
labor,
10.
and office.
It wouldn't replace it wouldn't upgrade the Office, Microsoft Office, but it would replace the operating system from Windows 7 to Windows 10.
Okay. Any other questions?
Still kind of lost. So you're saying brand new computer's $850
With Windows 10.
with Windows 10 and replacing exactly what they have. So what do you mean by that?
If Corey or Lori's computer died today,
Correct.
to replace with a refurbished machine that
That's
was
what I was
exactly
asking.
what they
Well,
have
that's what I was
today,
asking.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
a refurbished machine period compared to a new machine?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. 'Cause I'm not a very big fan of refurbished computers, but I worked at a tech college and we tried that one time. It was nothing but a nightmare. Because you never know truly what you get. And to me, the extra $350 is well worth having the warranties, having the computer brand new.
But even at that for 5 computers, that's still 850
I-
machines.
Yeah, I'm not saying that, I'm just saying, again, if we're gonna tweak the numbers, let's, use the right numbers. Again, because I'm not a fan of using the $500 for refurbished computers.
But Mr. Mayor, that essentially wouldn't be 5 computers because it's just me and Lori, Joe and Andy, and then one of them is the server.
And there's the one spare. They were saying there's Joe's, yours, Lori's, Andy's, and the spare that's currently Leo's, which is actually a better computer than what is Andy's.
Right, but what I'm saying is the server is gonna be more expensive to repair or to replace than one of the computers would be. And as far as I understand it.
By far.
Yeah, it would be a couple grand to replace the server itself, so that's number 5 computer, if you're thinking of it that way. And you can't replace the server with the computer. So, I'm just saying.
So in the road and bridge, we've got computer and office equipment, et cetera, 2,500, is that the spot you were talking about, the road and bridge?
Yes.
Is there other office equipment you're thinking about there, Cory?
No, Joe's the 2,500 was just for his computer stuff. Just for him, and then the other would be the server, and then the other 3 or 4 computers in our office there.
I'm just saying, if that's the logic, if you're not thinking right now of other office equipment in Joe's area, and we figured $850, if we had to replace the whole thing new, is there money there, $1,000 there you can take off and leave 1,500 instead of 25? You can take that off and still leave him $850 plus another $650 for whatever else. If he had to replace the computers new. Those listening online, that was a wake-up call. Did you get him? All right, so, computer equipment. What say we?
If we combine the two together and make it 7,000?
Cory?
Are you asking now that we combine those 2 funds? Is that what I'm getting or hearing?
If it's virtually this, does it need to be separated out?
Not necessarily, but it is kind of nice to be able to determine which part is the road and bridge and which isn't not, but.
So we could leave road and bridge 1,000 and leave general office at 6,000.
You're saying reduce totally 2,500? Between the two? So you take 1,500 off of road and bridge and 1,000 off of general fund.
Yes.
Let's say the rest of the council.
What do we use for for office? Is it 7, 10, or is it 360, or when do we gotta go to 360?
It's 2010.
That's what we have right now?
Yeah.
But when are we gonna, is there a certain time that we'll have to go to 360 or not? Cause then it's monthly.
Yeah, but it wouldn't have to be. I mean, you could just buy Office 2016 if you wanted to. You get the extra stuff if you go to Office 365 by the web and the sharing, and he was guessing that would be, what did he say? He wasn't sure, but he thought there was a flat rate of $125 for 5 copies total.
$25 a piece a month?
125 total for annual.
I find that very
That
hard to
seems really
believe.
light.
Maybe for 1 copy, for 5 copies of,
That, Again,
I
he
don't
was-
think so.
yeah. Okay, well, he was saying that's what he was saying in Arby's, and that was because, I thought the government got a pretty good deal on office.
All right, what else you got, Councilmember Bryan?
Just to look at it, looking at what, dues, subscriptions, and seminars since 2014, we haven't.
Am I on page 3?
Still on page 3. We haven't spent over 7,000, I just dropped it down to 7.
What goes into that?
Well, the dues subscription and seminars is for, our dues to the League of Minnesota Cities, the mayor's dues, anytime that me or Lori, when Lori went to the, clerks conference thing, or if I attend the, MCFOA, I'm trying to think of what other, there's a couple other dues.
Wasn't Lori taking a series of classes? Or
No, she
something?
just went to the one, but then she was talking about going next year, and, if she does a 3-year program, but I've only went to the first year, so I haven't even finished the 2 years on that. And then, like I said, the clerks conference, so.
I'd say at this point, since we're running just, 6,500, 6 to 6,500, with the additional training we probably want to do, I would consider leaving that one at this point.
Okay.
Council and, all right? Next.
On page 4, under legal notices for planning and zoning, I dropped it from 1,200 down to 700.
And your logic being,
Based on using the rough estimate from what was mentioned, that it would be about $35 per article, that would be about 20 articles to print.
and so far this year, we're at,
Well, so far, because we've
Oh,
gotten it
this
free
year,
from the
yeah.
record.
how many
If,
notices have we, any idea how many notices we've run this year? You say you do know, Dan?
yeah. Come on. I have 12 planning and zoning and 12 planning and zoning notices that we've printed so far this year. So that would include about 8 more,
And what are you proposing to drop it to?
700.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Rickert?
I don't know if we don't know what we're gonna get charged from here on out. We know that it's been free so far to date, but nobody has given us any cost of what it's gonna be in the future. So I don't see comfortable, and see how we can be 100% comfortable not knowing what we're gonna get charged.
If we wanna wait, so we can look at that one again in December if we want, that's fine with me.
I would rather wait until we know what we're gonna get possibly charged.
Have you heard anything from either paper yet? When do you typically hear?
January, right?
Pardon?
I think they only send it in
I don't think it's that
December,
late, I think it's more of November.
November,
Yeah,
December.
because I think everybody knows they're finalizing their budgets in December.
And Councilmember Bryan, your dollar amount was based on what he is currently charging, or the record is currently charging other new municipalities?
I recall last year he was saying some were at 30 and some were at 35, so I used the
Okay.
high at 35.
Okay. Right.
He's more than half of what he claims that the Noka Union's charging by his ads. He runs in his own paper, so even in 2015, we spent over $1,800. So if you went down to, it wouldn't be enough if you went to 7.
depends on what, we can bring it up again if you want. We've only printed 12 so far.
Yeah, 2015 was a big year.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember
I
Rainville.
just want to clarify something that Councilmember Bettinger said. You said he was more than half or less than half?
He's more than half. If you look in
Oh,
the,
okay.
he runs an ad, it says, citizens of Noka, if you
Okay.
would have put your ads, if your city would put your ads in my paper, this is what you would have paid.
Okay. All right, okay.
And I'm just going, so I'm going by his own
Is
statement.
that- Okay, I was, just wanted to clarify what you said.
I don't, you know, it's more than 50%, I don't know if it's, I didn't figure it out exactly, but it's,
But it is less than the other guys, the other paper.
All right, so at this point, it sounds like you want to leave that one till November or pre-December.
We talked.
Is that, I'm hearing? Okay,
We talked at the last budget meeting about the unemployment compensation, that we probably didn't necessarily need 5,500, but we should put something in there. I just picked something at 2,500. Page 5.
You were proposing what?
25.
2,500.
how many employees did we have working this summer? There's two others besides Steve,
Yes.
and they possibly could file. So, again, that's another gamble. And Steve could still file too, if you don't get enough hours in this winter, if we keep him around for plowing, if he,
We were saying Steve couldn't.
Unemployment, he can.
Yes,
Sure,
hey.
he can.
that's another one, we might have a better idea if we wait till December, see if any of them guys do
No, okay.
stop working and do get laid off. It's still a gamble, cause it still could file in January, but
Sure. That's fine, we can bring that one up later if we want. Page 6, I actually wanted to, just to keep them the same, we budgeted for $1,200 for receipts for the farmer's market. I just think we were trying to make that a wash, so we should change the expense from 500 to 1,200.
Run that by me again?
For the farmer's market,
What page are you on?
On page 6, towards the bottom,
Okay.
under the farmer's market, we anticipate a revenue of 1,200 for the farmer's market. I just wanted to make the expenses the same, 1,200.
Have we been spending 1,200?
Yeah, I knew it was right around there.
Well, this year we're 485.
You're basing that off the numbers from previous years, correct?
Yeah, there was 16 off of 2014. I remember the line item being higher. I don't know if all the receipts came in for the expenses, because they're still going. And then the one last change was we talked
What were you proposing?
to make it a $1,200 expense instead of 500.
Okay.
And then the one last change, again, we talked briefly about it, I just put it in there on page 8 to, instead of budgeting for the 15,000 for the capital improvements, to take it out of the levy and use, using unspent funds for that.
which line are you talking about?
That's on page
The last one.
8.
General
general
capital
capital
projects.
projects.
We had that discussion at the last workshop, should we levy for it, or should we take it out of any excess funds, seed it out of excess funds? You're saying zero that out and
We had over 100,000 of unspent from the general government from last year. And what was it, 70 something for road and bridge from last year?
Could you repeat that? I'm sorry.
Page 8,
Yeah, I'm on it.
under the general capital improvement,
Oh, okay, yeah.
just make that 0.
Oh, you had it.
close those hands.
So you want 0 instead of 15,000?
Yes.
So we added the line item just recently and we wanna take it away.
Well, we discussed how to seed it, whether at the previous workshop, should we levy for it, or should we look at what's excess at the end of the year?
Correct, but we never had that line item there prior. So at one of our previous workshops or meetings, we had the conversation to add that line item, add $50,000. So now we're talking about now taking it completely out. Because it was just a line item that we just added this budget session. And again, I would prefer it be there because the fact that, again, this is an old building. We took money, we actually went over budget in areas to pay for what we improved here this year. Because we didn't budget for that money to replace the heater and the furnace and air conditioning. So technically, we went over budget in that area. So if we're not budgeting for anything, and with, especially with the information that Andy gave us here the other day, you know, there's a lot of things that could fall into some pretty high dollar expenses that we aren't budgeting anything for.
And I've had a conversation with Corey where we could take unspent funds from last year and seed that fund for next year
Without it.
without it affecting anything and without it being levied.
I'd rather take the excess funds and put it to our roads that were decades behind.
I hear what you're saying. I also.
And I've been wanting to do that for years, and I've been denied that, but.
Well,
Our equipment funds running deficient, our road improvement funds running deficient, and
and so is our capital fund. It's also running deficient.
so you should fund them. If you know about it, you should fund them.
Yeah, we can do that. There's nothing that says we still can't do that. We've had had the chance last year to put more money into the road and bridge, and we did, into road improvement, and we didn't.
Yeah, we did, well, we did,
We could have put more in.
we could have.
We could have put, without affecting the levy, we could have put 25,000 more in. But it was just chosen not to do at the time, so.
All right, so the question here is this one, on the general capital project. We agreed that we wanted to get a capital fund going for that. Whether we take excess funds from previous years, if we transfer funds from this year, or we levy, would be the question. So one option is to either transfer funds at the end of this year, or take a look at funds from previous years that went into savings to put the seed money into this. Or the option that's proposed here is to actually add it to the levy. And Paul, you said you'd rather,
Yeah, you know,
Levy at this
again,
point?
based on Andy's information that he gave us at the last workshop, you know, the well here was, you know, I forget, I don't have it in front of me, but probably 50 years old or close, don't quote me on that, but pretty old. The septic system's fairly old. You know, you take those two line items right off the bat, you'd wipe that $15,000 out really quick. And then, again, any extra money that we have lying around, we'll wipe a big chunk of that out pretty quick. And then what do we do if something else comes up? It's always nice to have, you know, a little cash sitting there in case we have an emergency, but again, like, you know, we've been trying to put more and more money in road and bridge and transfer, you know, what surpluses over we've had, and we've struggled to do that. And now the whole goal was because of what we ran into this summer with the furnace here and the AC was to establish this fund. If that goal still exists, we need to see it or get money in there somehow and start building that up a little bit, because again, if some of these projects do land, they're gonna take some significant funds.
Well, look at the roof on the park building then. I mean, if it's this building, that we can't use park funds to repair the roof on this. That 15 grand will be gone, like that.
But, Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Rainbow.
I think some of that too is we also have to look at, and the information that Andy gave us is a good start, but historically, we've never had, our maintenance supervisor has never come and said, the shingles on that roof for the last 5 years have been bad. And then, boom, I need it today. There's other things that are the same thing, is that there's not been any ongoing either maintenance or dialogue that says these things need to be fixed. I mean, the painting at the pavilions, couldn't tell us when the last time we did any general maintenance there. That has to happen. The ramp out here, that should have been sealed this year. It's cracking. I mean, we might as well light it on fire, because so a lot of this capital improvement, we do need money to do things, but we also need somebody that has the foresight to look at what has to be done down the road. And that will help us then budget for those items. But we have not had that at all in the past from our maintenance supervisor. And we've suffered because of that.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Bettinger.
And that's why we had Andy look at everything and put this together for us. He gave us a number. We're even
Yeah.
budgeting less than what he
I-
is proposed for us, and now we're not gonna fund it. So why did we go through the exercise? Why did we have Corey add the line in our budget? We went through all this exercise, and then we're not gonna do anything with it.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Rainbow.
I don't think nobody here we haven't decided on anything yet, so to say we're not gonna fund it is not correct. I'm just saying that if we begin to fund this, then we better make sure we have a mechanism in place via one of our employees that can look to the future to say, these are the types of things that need to be done, so that we don't find ourselves at the end of our rope, and things are falling apart, things need to be replaced, because we're not doing general maintenance on them.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Rickard.
What I'm looking at this fund though is, it's not for painting the, trim on the pavilion. It's the furnace, the air conditioning. Our maintenance staff doesn't have the capability to service those. But I'm talking about the septic system here. Our maintenance staff doesn't have the foresight to be able to test and do whatnot. Those are items that with age, they wear out. That's gonna happen. That's what I'm saying this fund should do. And like I said, based on Andy's report, we all know that, there's certain things here that are pretty darn old, and sooner or later, they're gonna come and bite us in the butt. And if we don't have some way to fund those when they do, we're gonna be in trouble. And that has nothing to do with the maintenance staff.
Well, Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Rainbow.
I beg to differ. I believe that you have to have ongoing maintenance. And there are things that if we don't have ongoing maintenance of them, it will end up in the capital improvement project budget that needs to be fixed because we didn't do any ongoing maintenance. And that's been a downfall for many years, that we don't do, we don't project. Our staff doesn't project ongoing maintenance, and that's too bad. And we need to make sure that somebody is doing that. I mean, even I asked, furnace filters, when's the last time you changed a furnace filter? Don't know. When was the last time you put salt in the salt water, in the water heater, or water softener? Don't know.
I couldn't tell you when I did that at home.
I could
don't
tell you.
keep
Well,
my distance.
but that's your water softener, and if you don't care to know, you don't care to know, but this is the taxpayer's water
But
softener.
I know it gets done, and that's what
I-
matters.
Yeah.
I don't believe
Actually,
that. It-
that's a question, that's it. We're getting a little off subject here. Councilman Bryan, you started to say something.
You know, I've only heard, just because we add a line item doesn't mean that we have to, we're not putting money into it, and I think that's the misconception that's being said tonight, and that's not the case. I've already had a conversation with Corey, we can put 20,000 in this if we want to. And so we start out next year in 2018 with $20,000 budgeted in that general capital improvement fund.
The question is, so you're saying with existing funds that aren't allocated somewhere else, could put money into that without having to raise the levy,
Yes,
or raise the levy additionally,
yes.
all right?
What funds are those?
There's unspent money that's been in the checkbook for previous years that hasn't been allocated.
And we've been asking, I know that myself and other council members been asking to take excess money from road and bridge and put it in the road improvement fund for years too, and that hasn't happened.
And it's
Well,
a topic for
recently
discussion. We're talking about the
allocated
levy,
the
there's
road.
nothing that says we can't put the money in the capital improvement fund. If we're all in agreement, I can't see why we can't put $20,000 into the capital improvement fund.
All right, your proposal here, to keep this thing moving here, the proposal here is you wanna zero that out from a levy standpoint, but find money to put into it,
Yes.
all right? And Councilmember Rickard, you would like to see that levied? Is
Yeah,
the
well,
starting
the
point
council asked for it originally to be added, so I'm again perplexed as why we're now asking to take it out.
And when I'm not hearing take it out, I'm hearing fund it differently than through the levy, but not to take it out. I don't think anybody on the council wants to get rid of it. We know we need to put money aside for capital repairs.
And again, my point being, depending on the repair, we could really quickly wipe out anything that we levy and or have sitting extra in our checkbook. So if we're not gonna levy for anything, either here or now into the future, we're gonna slowly wipe out any savings that we may or may not have, and then what are we gonna have when we have that next big repair?
Right? Councilmember Bryan, were you starting to say something?
By still having money set aside into the account, it doesn't look like we're spending more than we actually are. Because by just taking the money out of the checkbook, it makes it look like we're spending more than we already are. At least that's if I got it right, how you explained it to me, Corey. If we just take the money that's in the checkbook and spend it, it looks like we're actually going over budget because we didn't budget for it. So we can still have that $20,000, at least for seed money for that fund, and even if we go over, that's $20,000 less that we're going over.
That's not what I'm saying, though. I'm saying, okay, if we have, say for an example, if all of a sudden something happens and we have to replace the well and the septic here. Now, we're not putting any money in here per the levy. We're taking money from the checkbook or reallocating money and putting it in here. Now we wipe out a huge portion of any surplus we have. Then what happens if something else comes up and we don't have anything? Now we're SOL,
Mr. Mayor?
because we don't have any surplus funds.
Okay, so if we have the $15,000, so if we take it from here, we're not taxing, we're not putting it on the levy, the residents are not paying for $15,000. That doesn't mean, I just want to get this straight, that doesn't mean we don't have funds available that we can take, that they've already been levied for. Those funds have already been levied, so we would be able to supplement that line item with funds that have already been paid by the taxpayers and were not spent in the year they were assessed. So we would still have, I'm gonna just use the 15,000, we would still have that 15,000, and we would be in the same place we would be if we didn't take the 15 off this line. I mean, if we took 15 from the existing checking account and put it there on December 31st, we would still be in the same boat, but we're just not taxing the residents for that $15,000, because we already have it.
speculating, hoping. You don't know that for a fact. You're speculating.
Well, I'm hearing Councilmember Bryan saying that Corey has told him that there are funds there that are unspent. And
I'm
we could-
hearing two different things. One is transfer funds at the end of the year that weren't spent this year versus funds from previous years that weren't spent that are in a savings account, that are basically in our checking account. Which are two different things. I mean, there's still a possibility of transferring funds to any number of these capital programs at the end of this year and taking a look at our savings account and seeing if we want to allocate some of that as well. All right, so I think it's pretty clearly marked that some people would like to fund this going forward more aggressively with a $15,000 added to this year's levy as our baseline and then see what else can transfer into it. There's some argument for taking what we can transfer that might be in excess this year or from previous years and fund it that way. We just need to come to a consensus here.
Makes a difference of 0.5%. Total.
15,000?
Yep. 0.5%, half a percent. Or rerun that just.
All right, anything else, Mr. Councilmember Bryan?
That was all I had.
Were there any changes on the revenue side? Anybody's gonna propose?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Rainville.
And looking on the receipt side, our building official has said numerous times in the last 2 months, 3 months, that the building permits are down and new construction is down. So I'm wondering if we want to entertain reducing it all, receipts in the building, in the area of building.
Again, that's one of those where if the receipts are down, the expenditure should be down as well.
And Mr. Mayor, if you reduce your receipts in that aspect, it's actually gonna increase your levy.
Yep. So I would be hesitant to do that. I think if the receipts aren't there, the expenditure should be commensurately down, so it balances out. So I would leave it at this point. I would recommend leaving it at this point. Anything else? When we get contributions from, say, the Lions or Ham Lake or RB type things, do they go into the receipts
It depends
under
on
the
what's
contributions?
It depends on what the contribution is for. So in the case of receiving the contributions for the fire department for the radios, that went into the fire equipment fund because it was specific to that purpose. And if the Lions donate specific to item, then it goes into whatever, if it was something that was just a general fund and wasn't equipment, then it would go under general fund. So those funds are not part of the budget because they're capital funds. The only portion is if you're transferring money.
So that would show up in a monthly statement as receipts. We wouldn't necessarily know if it was a transfer over from a CD versus a
No, because
contribution.
there is a transfer line item.
Not on the monthly though. I mean, if it was like the park,
Yeah,
it would just show money came in, whether it was a donation or a transfer. Or,
yeah. But then, given that you would know how much your donation was, you can kind of tell.
So how would we track that? I mean, that goes right into the fund. How do we how do we know how much we got in those types of contributions, if, like the radios or whatever went right into that?
Then you can just pull a report that shows that fund and it's similar to kind of this, and it will show, but even though there's no budgeted line items, it will still show what those line items of money coming in or going out are for. Because they still have to be keyed in specifically.
Okay. All right, so at this point, there would be no recommendations for change in receipts. All right, let's see. Hear and see nothing, let's say that. Okay, so. The changes that were talked about tonight, we were talking about the attorneys leaving alone at this time and looking at that later in the year when we know more. Is that agreed? Talked about on page 3 of the general fund, under computers. As I say, opposite of what I had marked here, going from 7,000 back down to 6,000.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Rickert?
question for Corey. Being that's under office equipment, is there anything else under that line item that may be above and beyond just computers?
Well, it could come to printers too. Granted, some of the printers, we're not talking the copier printer, but we're just talking lap or desktop. And knock on wood, mine has not gone out yet, but mine is the most expensive one. It's a Laserfiche, and it's specific for printing the checks and stuff. And actually that, I've had that one since I started here. So, and it's probably about a $2,000 printer. So it still seems to be running pretty good. But, so that would be the other item that could potentially be. But otherwise, our copy machines are under contract, so any repairs in that are all part of that. And office equipment, telephone, but we do have a yearly contract thing with that too. That will be a future thing for upgrades, but the phone system seems to be working just fine, but it is kind of obsolete now. So, but we don't really have any problems with it, so my fix was not broken yet. And that potentially could be under, which I don't think we talked about, but the same as Andy's report, depending on the cost.
All right, so what say the council? I'm good with 6,000?
I'm good with 6,000.
All right? 6,000 it goes. Next one was the telephone. There was a talk of 11,000 to 10,000 something, 600. Are we good with 11,000 on that rather than 13,1?
You going to 11 or 10.5 or 10.6?
I'm proposing 11 as the compromise.
Okay, now I gotta change my.
Well, Mary had said 10.6, Dan had said 11. I'd rather cheat to the high side. All right with 11?
Yes.
All right. And the other ones on that page, I think were, could be readdressed as we knew more what the year's bringing. We need to have, from a legal notice standpoint on page 4, proposals from the local newspapers to see what's realistic for projecting for next year. Anything else on page 4, anybody want? What is the current wage for firefighters, Paul?
Couldn't honestly tell you.
15, I believe.
15? I thought somebody said the other day 20, and I thought,
No,
That seemed,
I
that was a big jump.
thought it was actually under 15 myself.
Chief Coroner had told me 1450.
Yeah, maybe. I don't pay attention, I don't know.
Oh, I thought it was 15.
I think it's on, I remember seeing a 14 somewhere, but I could be 100% wrong.
Mr. Mayor, I didn't change anything specific on page 4. I just happened to talk to Captain Zachary yesterday, or Saturday. If they, with the, you know, the few increases that the fire department did have, about looking at possibly just adjusting some things around in that. I just talked specifically about the computer, and he was gonna talk to Matt, because we have $2,000 budgeted for the one computer there. I hadn't heard back from Captain Zachary or Matt yet regarding that, so I just didn't bother bringing it up any further, but that's a possible spot if we wanted to. He didn't think it was gonna be a problem. That can be another for later, it's fine.
All right, nothing else on page 4?
Not at this time, nope.
Let me go back, so we didn't change the telephone, is that what the one, or we did?
We
Changed
did.
to 11.
Page
No,
4.
no, under the fire department.
No, fire department, no.
Okay, because I had question marks. Okay.
All right, on page 5, we talked about unemployment compensation, discussing that later, when we saw what the potential was there. The computer for road and bridge, talked about dropping from 25 down to 1,000. All right. Page 6,
Is that, so is that what we're doing?
any disagreement? Okay. Page 6. We talked about raising the farmer's market from 500 to 1,200 for expenditures. Anything else on that page?
Did we decide if that was gonna wait till the end of the year though?
And wait till the end of the year on that?
Yeah, well, then that way it's over and we know exactly
Okay.
where numbers are at.
We had, we put an extra 4,000 into the budget for culverts. It's actually repair maintenance, contractual for culvert repairs. We've done 12,600 one year, 85, 2,000 culverts this year with the big one. So in the line item here, it's repair, maintenance, contractual. And on the expenditure, so we've gone at 15,000 so far. All right, leave that alone. Anything else on page 6? Hearing none. Anything on page 7?
Nothing right now.
And page 8. General capital project. Agreement is we all want it. Question came up as to how do we fund it? Do we take a transfer from this year, transfer from previous years, or levy for it? Difference of opinion, so I will ask for a vote on it. General capital projects. We would like to see it at 0 for a levy standpoint, but funded some other way. would say yes.
Yes.
Councilmember Rickard?
Doesn't matter, does it?
I guess not. So we'll keep it at 0 at this point for the levy standpoint, and then we need to find out where that money would come from.
The staff put together the park and trail capital equipment purchase plan. Do we want to add any money to that? Until 2020, they have on there replacing that Toro Moore at $80,000.
Expensive more.
Is that an actual deck or is it a gang of blades behind it?
That's
Multiple
that great big
decks.
mower with got.
But right now,
decks
it's
on
a,
it.
Oh, where the sides fold up?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's 3 decks, the one center and then the 2 wings that'll fold up enough.
yeah, it's a 6-foot deck with 2 5-foot wings. I don't know if that 80 replaces that, or if that's a different type of mower, but. Again, what says the council on that?
I think you should start funding that, otherwise you use park funds to replace that, it's gonna deplete them funds in a hurry.
Right.
You know, the other thing that never came up was anything from was there gonna be any expenses related to, park this winter as far as, ice making, warming house? And we didn't talk about, we talked about if the concrete pads put in for the warming house or the footings for the hockey boards, that would come out of the capital fund? Is that what the council's expecting? Park capital?
That would come out of that's gonna be labor, so that can't come out of the park fund.
Well, the concrete, we wouldn't be doing the labor.
Concrete can, yes. If we do that.
So do we need to increase labor in the park employees? And right now, Corey, you were saying the other day that that's probably gonna be part of their winter duties, not necessarily additional cost. Depends on our snow, I guess.
Right. And, I mean, given that it was, what we have in the, budget right now was enough to cover the cost for them for last year. So, I mean, granted, added another rink onto it, I still think that it should be sufficient to cover, for the costs associated with it.
So we got,
We still have about 8,000 left to spend for part-time park.
you know, there's labor, that's labor, there's also fuel. I mean, last year, I think what did it take? 44 loads or 60 loads or whatever it was. If we put in a second rink, I would have speculated it would double. There's fuel and right now Joe modified is it the toolcat or?
Yep, so that it would be easy, not, the, truck, so that you
The
could get out a
pumper.
way to spread it evenly and more efficiently.
But didn't he also use the toolcat
Yeah,
with
it's got something with the toolkit.
with the tank on it and a carpet he drags behind it?
That's
To
just to
resurface?
resurface.
Yeah. I mean, he modified that, so that shouldn't be any additional cost.
No,
So do we need any extra monies in there, does anybody see for doing the same rink we did last year and potentially a second rink next to it? I don't think the ground is ready for a second rink next to it, we'd have to prepare the ground, because it's not level at this point. And I don't know on a figure skating rink, if you put a small earthen berm around it, or what you do to hold that in.
What was the deal with Perkins and the people who took the dirt? That
Well,
contract never
they
got.
kind of leveled it out. They did not, to my evaluation, they didn't restore it to what we said it was gonna be. We walked it out there before parking last week, and it's a plateau. I mean, there's quite a drop off as you go north and east. So it never did get flattened out completely, but definitely it's not, it wouldn't sustain a flat surface for ice. So we're gonna have to do something, Joe or somebody.
Wouldn't we call the contractor back again to ask him to do what
Well,
was required?
that would be, I think Bob actually sent a letter, didn't he?
I don't think you're gonna get anything more out of him, especially since he's already got letters that he's violating, filling in some wetlands with the dirt, so.
He said car dirt and fill in wetland?
Yeah. So he'll be getting, well, he already got 2 letters,
We should have just left the pile as is then,
so.
because it does us any good.
All right, so the question came up as far as the recently proposed capital plan for park equipment.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Rainville.
if we're looking to replace that in 2020, it'll be $26,666 a year for 3 years to fund it.
You could take some out of the park fund for that,
Yeah, just not, you don't wanna take the whole lump sum.
right?
Problem with taking out of the park fund is we're not replenishing anything in the park fund. And if we continue to take from that, there'll be nothing there.
No, we got 2 homes going up, that'll put 10 grand back in the park fund. I mean, there's other homes going up, are they, I'm assuming they're all contributing to the park fund, is
As long
No.
as it's not getting waived,
It's only
when it-
platted, lot
Yeah.
splits and plats, yeah.
Yeah, if it's an existing.
Yeah, so you have 2 lots,
Correct.
other one coming.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember
I would
Brian?
say that when we look at how much we're seeding into these other funds, that we could certainly look at the park and trail capital equipment at the same time.
My big fear again though is now you're taking everything that we got and just putting it elsewhere and then if something big happens, we're gonna be in big, big trouble.
Yeah, you need reserves, you know, if you had a tornado come through here and wiped out a bunch of houses and stuff, you have to have some reserves. And,
I'm not saying we don't.
well, you're starting to deplete it, and you
We got 2
took
funds.
some
we
for the
wanna take.
furnace already, and take some for the park now, and you keep spend, but you gotta put her back in.
Well, again, this is one of those catch-ups, and we talked about, you know, other things that didn't get funded before. It was only recently, after we asked for, is there anything else in the parks we should know about, that we kind of forced this, that, you know, you're looking for equipment, you should have a capital fund. So this is something that hadn't been discussed before, it's new, and we've only recently gotten the proposal. I have no idea whether $80,000 is a reasonable price for a lawnmower or not.
I think that's probably gonna be low if you replace it with one like what that one is.
Yeah, it would be nicer to have something to support that, though.
They're spending machines, but it can save you a lot on labor.
Well, I do know like the X-Mark, 72-inch X-Mark is 20 grand there is probably light. because I was just looking at those. Not a 72, but a 60. I have a 52 now, so.
Now, what do I do?
I think we should put something in there, even if it's start out small, even if it's 5,000, put something in there to get started.
Yeah, I was gonna say 10 and try to stretch out the purchase of it beyond 220.
Get 5 here, get 10 there, what do you say?
75?
75?
Spin the wheel.
Mary?
I'll go with the compromise of 75.
You should have gone 15 and the compromise would have been 10. All right, let's go 75.
So 7,500?
Yep. All right, anything else? And once, and twice.
Mr. Mayor, do you want to see what, this is what I came up with the calculation now. As always, I like to double check my numbers, but I've got 1,461,196.
One more time, 146.
196. So 1,461,196. And I don't have my calculator with it, that you turn in the percentage. And that was with those changes that were made earlier and with adding that $7,500 in.
$7.336? Yeah.
All right. As she stands, we'll evaluate as more year-end numbers come in, we can project. Generally, you have a good idea when we get late November, once you close, and you know what fixed expenses are gonna be. We'll have some idea if we had a really winter or not.
Yeah. And it's,
So we will present this for final right now at our December meeting, which is
December 12th.
number 12. So if we were going to propose anything different than this, what opportunity would we have to do that?
I just had one more question we talked about that I had highlighted, I forgot to bring up till now, is Andy had brought up last meeting about, that little retention deal. I think we were talking when we funded that with surplus money, or
Which one was that?
his retention,
Document retention.
his documentation
Oh.
retention plan. He wanted like $3,000 seed money to get that started.
Yeah, that was right.
County's been scanning everything, but they still keep all the paper copies too. But the nice thing about the scanned copies is, like Andy said, anybody can, we can get access to the files. You can email them or whatever, print them out.
I would wager we can get that out of, if we wanna call that part of a computer project, we could potentially get some of that. I don't know what all we're spending, else we're spending for the rest of the year, but I would guess we could probably, between the road and bridge money and the general money, we could probably come up with the 3,000.
For office equipment under both those.
Right. Out of this year's.
Would've been nice to have Shane's report.
Yeah, it would. All right, anything else?
I'll make a motion to pass resolution 1713.
With the revised numbers?
Yep.
Got a motion?
Second.
Motion second, any other discussion?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Ricker?
Just a quick note to, based on my calculations, and the increase was a total of just over $99,000 with us increasing road and bridge by 100, so.
99,864.
So if anybody wants to know where the major increase was, there it is.
And once we get these flying cars, we won't care anymore. All right, so Corey, you'll get an updated revision, I'll come sign it.
Yep.
and We'll get her into the county.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Move to adjourn.
Meeting adjourned.